Thanks, Vinayak. So let me just welcome everybody once again. And I'll introduce Dr. Arun. And so he is an orthodontist based in Mumbai. And so like many of us, he was a good student and did his medical stuff until about he was in his late 20s. And which is when he decided to become Mr. Hyde and go into the outdoors. So he's been making up for lost time, and now he's a mountaineer. He's an ultra marathoner, and he's also a trekker. So he's certainly done a lot in the last 10 years. Among them, multiple expeditions, lots of treks, and and in addition to all this, several ultra marathons, which is not easy, as I know. I having tried it once, and just only once. I think recently he ran the very challenging Buddha trails at Timbuktu, and what usually takes about 4 days, he did in about 14 hours. And he's got a perfectly suited partner, his wife, who's been, in his words, trekking more than he has, even though she seems to be more of a trekker than a mountaineer from what he was explaining to us. And his mother-in-law is a very experienced mountaineer. She did her basic and advanced back in the 60s when Tenzing Norgay was the director. And his mother-in-law's sister, Dr. Meena, she was a doctor on the Bachendri Pal expedition, the first ascent on Everest. So quite illustrious company, and Dr. Arun is now charting his own legacy. And welcome, Dr. Arun. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. And we're very keen to listen to you about how you got into this, how you are planning for it, your preparation, and your views as a person who actually does the activity rather than like most of us who only organize a lot of these things. Over to you, Dr. Arun.
Thanks so much, ATAOI, for the honor of speaking to all you people. And let me just share the screen first. And So thanks so much for having me here. Thanks, Milind, for introducing me to these lovely people. And it's nice to see you also there in the audience and making time for this. So yes, I'm basically a doctor, right? So we spend half our life studying. So till 28, I was studying. I was planning, finishing my studies and, all exams and MBS and all that. And then you start practice and nothing comes easy, so we have to spend close to 3 or 4 years, getting the ropes of private practice and, making a mark for yourself or, starting earning. Okay. And that's actually a big thing because, at that point, so many things are happening because the world is opening out to you. You have to establish practice, which takes money. You have to probably start a family for many of them. And, all these things come together. So obviously, while I was studying, because my parents never had a background of anything of the outdoors, we barely used to even go for holidays. All our holidays would be at our native place. That was the only kind of holidays which we had as kids. And we never really went to Kashmir or Ladakh or this or that. These places were completely out of the radar. Okay, and then once you finished studying, literally that's at around 28 or 29, I started seeing, there are these things. There's wildlife, there is trekking, there is mountains and all that. So practically, I started trekking at the age of 29, and that also came after a bout of like a spinal injury. I had an operation for slip disc. So how did we, get into this whole thing about climbing a mountain, from all there? So if you just look at the kind of progress which I made over the past decade, it's like this. So 2009 was the first Himalayan trek which I had done with Countryside India. That was Gandala Pass. That was my introduction to the Himalayas at the age of 33. Okay, 33. All right. So and then I was recovering. I had a slip disc problem, and I got operated for that. And after that, I actually started running, because till then I'd never done any kind of exercise or anything. Really, I used to go to the gym when I was in college, which was another 10 years before that, and there was nothing really. So I got operated for a slip disc, and then I ran my first half marathon in 2010. Then after that, my wife, like he already mentioned, had already had a background of trekking, and she had done much more trekking in her younger years. So then she said, if I have to, gel into the family, we have to get married. Even you need to get into all these things which I love. So I said, fine. I was okay with that. So then I did my first Himalayan trek, which was Goichala, again with the countryside India. And then that was my introduction to real trekking. That's when I understood how bad weather can be, because I was completely unprepared for that. I just went like a city guy, despite many briefing sessions. I ignored all that. I went with just completely assortment of gear, which nothing seemed to be right when I was there. And the weather actually turned quite bad and nasty, and had a bad cold, but still somehow I struggled up to the Goichala, and I finished that trek. So when I came back, it was like it was a big thing for me, and that was probably my calling. So I said, oh wow, this looks really good. And thereafter what we did is we started trekking more. So we made it a mission. Now, since we are doctors, we also have the liberty of planning our life. I'm not employed with anybody, so I can take a leave whenever I decide to, and all we have to do is inform our patients that we're not there, and we are not there. Okay, so what we used to do is we used to plan our holidays first and build our work around it. So we, at any point in time, we always knew that we have a holiday coming up. So, working became that much more enjoyable. So we used to do holidays 3 times in a year. Mostly that time in 2010, it used to be wildlife holidays. And then after that, it got more into trekking and adventure sports and ultra marathon running. So that was it. So then we started looking at other operators also. We found India Hikes, and we did quite a few treks with them. We did Kashmir, Great Lakes, then 2013 Chadar, Kedar Kantha, Rupin Pass. Stoke Kangri was the first probably mountain, a serious mountain, which we climbed in 2015, because I was training for the Khardungla Marathon. So I said, which is organized by Ladakh Marathon. So I did that ultra marathon. That was my first ultra marathon, and I finished that too. So, but Stoke Kangri was the point where I first experienced what is high altitude. When you go up to that altitude, all of you know how it feels. You feel like dizzy, nice feeling, and you feel like just sleeping over there for some time, or you feel so tired on summit day that you say, okay, let me just sit down over here. So, and then you decide to come back. So I used to love that feeling, that euphoria, or the tiredness which comes after you climb the summit. And I had read a lot of books which says that people get hallucinations and stuff. So I said, I've never experienced hallucinations. So maybe if you go higher and higher, maybe that's what happens, when. So then after that, we did Everest Base Camp, which and Gokyuri, and then I went for Mera Peak, which was now a 6,400 meter mountain. So I started at 6,000, then I went to 6,400. And then I said, we did very well at Mera Peak. We did it with the Pune-based organization called Giri Premi. And this was my first trek in Nepal. And again, the climbing bit, this time we had to do a little bit of technical climbing. We were roped and stuff. So that was, again, a new introduction. So for the record, I have not done my mountaineering courses, because I could never in my career take 1 month off for that. And I think now I'm too old. Maybe just 1 or 2 institutes might just allow me to do a trek. So, do a mountaineering course. So I never really did mountaineering courses, but always, whenever I used to go for these mountains, the experiences of, handling the ropes and the carabiners and the ascenders and all these things were like very exciting. So I said, let's try a higher mountain. Let's see, how high I can get, without this. So we said, okay, fine, let's do Mount Noon, because that was the mountain that we could think of, being in India, and it was relatively not so expensive as, say, a mountain in Nepal. So that's what made us decide on Mount Noon. Okay, and thereafter in 2019 we did Mount Hanuman Tibba, which we summited, which was again a lovely technical mountain, and it was a very short trip of just three odd weeks, or lesser than that, 18-20 days. But in those 18-20 days, the mountain was really tough, and we had all the experiences of climbing. We saw an avalanche. We did major wall climbing, front pointing and all these things, which is a completely different experience for a non-professional mountaineer. So that way. So that was a kind of thing. Of course, March 2020, we were supposed to do a trek in Canada, but that didn't happen. And 21, this year we are supposed to do Mount Nanda Gunti, but again, we couldn't do that. And that's where I am today. So anyway, so we decided, and forming a group again, becomes very difficult, because always you need to plan people's schedules. Like, say, I had the liberty of taking time off, but some other people who were employed and who couldn't time their leaves. So eventually, from a group of 7 who had eventually agreed to do the thing, it boiled down to 4 of us. So what you're seeing today, like all the things, it's there on a YouTube channel, which is done by the guy in the center over here, Sujit Malik, and he has a lovely YouTube channel, and he has uploaded some 7 or 8 videos of Mount Noon, and I've taken screen grabs from that, and I've posted that because it's absolutely beautifully chronicled. Okay, so that's how you're seeing today. And this was the 4th guy, Homi, because of whom we had to delay our plan, because he works for Tata Motors. He said, we have some major work happening, this I cannot take leave at that time. And so we selected a time which was probably not recommended by Remo Expeditions, but we had to select that time just to see that he fits in. So then we had a group of 4, which was required. They had said that if it's not a group of 4, then the costs don't work out, and we may have to call it off. But luckily, he was the 4th guy, and we had to take him on because we had no choice. So that phase. So of course we went to Leh. That was our starting point, and we did it with Remo Expeditions, who are probably the leaders in trekking and mountaineering in Ladakh region and other places. So this was my first experience with them after the Khardungla marathon, which I had done with the Ladakh marathon. These were our Sherpas. So I believe we are non-professional mountaineers. So I was explaining to Pradeep a little while back that I can never think of doing something in an alpine manner. That means, if I just take 2 of my friends and, we just go pitch our own tents, set up our own ropes, I don't think I could do that. So obviously, when we are in the mountains, we are at the mercy, and we are completely indebted to the Sherpas or the guides who take us there. So that way. So these were the lovely Sherpas we had: Pekma, Ridhar, Samgel, and Datuk Bhote. So this guy had the accomplishment of climbing Everest 7 times, and he was also part of the rope fixing team. So we had a very strong set of people leading us up there. So anyway, the problem with me is that I don't acclimatize so well. So, whenever we go up high, and especially when it comes to Ladakh, I've been to Ladakh 4 times. We've done 4 different mountains every time we've gone. And every time I go to Ladakh, I have this, thing of headaches, and, first 2 or 3 days are really bad. I get nightmares. I don't sleep well, and I get terrible cold and stuff, and a really bad nose. and I don't acclimatize well. So for me, this whole acclimatization thing is very important. Whereas if I do any trek in, say, Uttarakhand, or if we start from lower levels, like we did Hanuman Tibba, we reached a height of 6,000 meters, but there was absolutely no problem because you're starting from a greener valley and stuff like that. So this Ladakh has always been a challenge for me, but still the place is so beautiful and out of this world, literally, for people who are used to seeing concrete here. It just keeps calling me back, and I never say no. So that way. So anyways, that was our strategy, to always climb high and sleep low. So the first time we did, we went to Warila Pass. We reached Leh, and that's probably the second or third day we went to Warila Pass for a drive, and then we climbed up towards Warila Pass, and then we came down. After that, I could say that, okay, fine, now I'm fully set. And, all my nightmares were over as far as acclimatization was concerned. So this was our plan. Okay, it's done very beautifully by Sujit. So we started off from Leh. Our first thing was Hanupatta. Hanupatta is a place which is near Kargil, and it's a little before that, and it's an offshoot from there. And then from there we can go towards the two passes which eventually lead you to Somothang mountain. So the reason I've included these slides also is because Somothang is probably features only in the itineraries of remote expeditions as an acclimatization mountain. Now, all of us, know that Stok Kangri is there. There is Kangyatse, and the whole world wants to go over there. Whereas this mountain is really, it's really aloof, and you barely find anybody over there. In fact, when we heard of Somothang in the itinerary, I tried to Google it. I tried to look on Google Maps. On Google Earth, I couldn't find anything about it. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And so then we decided that when we go for this expedition, we should take a proper recording so that anybody in future who wants to do that mountain will have, all the data there. And that's what we did. So we have a lovely collection of videos, which unfortunately I'm not playing out today because of bandwidth issues. So I will just be sharing the screen grabs from it and explaining you the entire way to get to Somothang. Because I think as tour operators, you always want to showcase something which is different and not run of the mill. And if you have clients who are willing to go that way and want something where nobody goes, or which is also accessible and doable and yet has its challenges, but still it can be managed, I think this is a great mountain that you guys can take people. So that way. So that's where it was. Then after we would climb Somothang, we would come to Kanji village, which is kind of the base village for Somothang, and then we would drive down to Kargil. Then we would come to Tangol, which is the base camp, base village for Noon, and then climb to Noon base camp, and then of course attempt Mount Noon. So this was the entire plan. So we set out from Leh. We decided to go to Hanupatta. Obviously, this is a place which no one misses while on the route to Kargil. This is at Nimu, and the confluence of Zanskar and Indus. Then, of course, we took the detour and we went towards Hanupatta. It's a very small village. It's there in a valley. I don't even know if any other treks or any other things start from there, but this is there. It's a motorable road all the way up to Hanupatta, and it even goes ahead and it goes towards some other direction. But that's where we camped to start our trek. So that way. So our first day was we went to this place called Snigutsela Base. So Snigutsela is a pass which we need to cross to reach the other side of, to reach the Kanji side, okay, from the Hanupatta side. So there are two passes which we need to cross, and these are all at 4,705, around 5,000 meters to 5,000, around 90 odd meters, and that is very good acclimatization before we eventually attempt a mountain like Somothang or even Nun. So that means, so it's again a beautiful place. So what I really like about Ladakh is that it's a barren place, and I really like the colors of the mountains, the formations, the shapes, the towers, the spikes, and just the scree. I like the scree. A lot of people hate it, but I just love the scree because it's so challenging just to go over them or to climb them, and we've done plenty of it in the past 3-4 years. And of course, we have the support of all the horses and the horsemen, and who make your entire journey so easy. Obviously, like I said, because we go for guided expeditions, we are at the mercy of all these people, and if they're not there, it's very difficult for us to plan out everything on our own and go there. So that way. So the next day, then we decided to head towards the Snigutsela Pass. Okay, so we crossed this beautiful gorge where it looks completely like a third world place, and something out of Lord of the Rings. And eventually, then it opens out to this barren thing where then you can just see the pass at a distance. So you can, on the slope of the mountain, that's where the pass was, the first pass, Snigutsela Pass. So we reach there, and whenever we reach a pass, I personally, thank God, because it's really an accomplishment for us, like who are really not into trekking and mountaineering throughout the year. We are not professionals, and whenever we reach there, I send a silent prayer to the gods that thanks at least for getting me to here, and everything is a learning experience for me. Everything, because like say if I climb a pass, or if I, even climb an ice wall on ropes, it's all a new experience for us. So it becomes very difficult for people like you who are into it all the time to imagine that it would be difficult, but it's difficult, and that's what I enjoy learning. So even if I don't reach the summit, it doesn't matter really, because in the course of those 3 weeks, I've learned so many more new things. So that means, and then of course we descended back. Now here again, you can see the beautiful colors, the blue mountains in the backdrop, the orange spires, the brown sand. It's just so magical that, whenever I'm there, and in fact, even while I was making these slides, I was just wishing, where am I going next over there? It's just so mind blowing. The stream crossings, and these are run-of-the-mill things. But then, as a person who goes there rarely, it's just a simple joy. Like now we'd be headed to Parangla, and there I've heard that we have to do a lot of stream crossings, maybe not jumping over boulders, but going through the icy waters. And these are all fantastic things. So the good thing about this is that once you start doing this, it kind of builds into your memory, and even your body learns to accept it. Like say, for example, in 2013, when we did the Chadar trek, there were places where the chadar was broken, right? And our feet were completely with our gumboots inside the water, and all the water with all the icy spicules, they were all inside, and it was hurting like bad because it was obviously freezing water, and it was inside our gumboots. And then we walked furiously, just to get the blood circulation going. And eventually, then it was fine. Once the sun came out, it was fine. And we emptied our boots and, saw our legs. It had million cuts on it because of the ice, but it all felt good. So somehow I feel that, every trip you do, it kind of adds to your memory, not only to your memory, but even your body's memory. And whenever next time it's exposed to something similar, you have that confidence that, okay, fine, this will carry me through. I've done that before. I know how it feels. This cannot be worse than that. If it's worse than that, it's another lesson to learn. So that way. So of course, then we crossed the Snigutsela Pass, and then we went to another place called Shilagaon, which is again a very small place. Barely had 1 or 2 hutmens and shepherds who live there, and those are the only inhabitants of that place. So at Shilaga, then we set up a small fire over there, and we sang songs and had a good time. Then the next day was another challenge. We had to cross two passes and reach the other side, which is the Somothang base camp. So again, we had to trek through rubble and this complete valley in which supposed to be a small, bigger river, but at that point it was just a stream. So that is, we saw some wildlife. We even saw snow leopard pug marks at few places. And then we headed out to the pass. Okay, so generally a pass crossing is for us, like it's very difficult because it's relentless climbing. But when we do this relentless climbing, we, like I said, the body takes it keeps memory of what training we have done previously. Okay, and eventually you count your steps, and you try to reach up there and try to catch up on breath, go slowly, drink lots of water, and then you make it. So of course the pass offered beautiful views and even gave us the first view of a mountain, Somothang, which seemed just like a small hill up there. And we thought, oh wow, like this seems very doable. Okay, and we didn't know what lied ahead, but at that point it did seem like that, oh, it's not too far, we should easily manage that. And of course we could even see our base camp where we eventually went. And by the time we reached, we realized that there was a big problem behind because the horses and mules hadn't reached. And once we reached, the body starts feeling cold, and it was completely open, so it was very windy, and we had to just burn some dung and try to keep ourselves warm and wait for the horses to come. And it took a lot of time for them to come. We were constantly waiting, kabhi aayega. We could just see some drama happening up on the hills where the horseman was chasing the mules. And later we got to know that the climb was too steep for the animals, and they had to offload the stuff. And when they offloaded the stuff from the animals ran away. Then they had to catch the animals and put the stuff back on them and get them down. So all of that led to a delay. But what it also meant is that because of that delay, it also took a big toll on us because it was a tough day of crossing two passes and reaching that place. And then we had to, on the same night, we had to leave for the summit of Somothang, okay? And we had to leave at around 2 o'clock or some time like that. So we reached here late. Obviously, when the horses reach late, the camps are set up late. And once the camps are set up, then we have dinner, then we go to sleep, and then stuff. So anyways, we did all that. We gathered our equipment for preparing for the summit attempt before it got dark. And at 1:30, we woke up for a breakfast. We had our dinner, and we woke up early in the morning, and we left out. Now, the good thing about this mountain is that it offers brilliant views of the Karakoram. So in fact, we used the Peak Finder app. The sunset was the sunrise was completely mind-blowing, like it is always on any mountain. When the sun comes up, it brings a new life to all of us. And you're very tired from the climbing through the night, and then suddenly the sun comes up. It feels so good. So this mountain particularly is a great mountain to climb because it offers brilliant views of Nanga Parbat, Ketu, Gashabram, and all these things which are there in the other Karakoram Himalayas. So we could actually see that. And for me, the biggest draw was to be able to see K2, because that is some mountain which I hope to at least reach the base camp, if not climb it someday. And I don't know when that will happen, but that's really a dream. In fact, through my lecturing, because as an orthodontist, we are invited to conduct lectures in different countries. So I always try to tell the company that, if there's anything in Pakistan, let me know. And if you can send me to Pakistan as a speaker, I would definitely go there, spend some time, and maybe try and attempt some treks over there. But alas, this is all that we could do. We could actually see a lot of big mountains from here. Of course, it was at a distance, but luckily it was quite clear and we could correlate it with the Peak Finder app and find it. Now here, this is how Somotang looked. It just looked like, crossing a couple of humps of hills and reaching there. But what had happened is, we had walked through the night, and earlier, the expeditions who have gone to Somotang, they normally set up the high camp at this point. But when we went, there was no water source there. So our Sherpas, they decided to camp a bit lower and do that. So that meant we had to climb all that extra on our summit attempt. And this was somewhere early in the morning at around 7 o'clock. And then we reached the crampon point where we would then have to cross this entire glacier and then go up this rock over here and then climb up to Somotang. So this is me descending to the crampon point, and in the mountains everything looks deceptively close. So this entire traverse of this glacier, it took us 2.5 hours. So though it just looks like it's just there, but it takes that much time, and at that point, two of our friends, Homi and Huzefa, they decided to turn back as they were exhausted. And only Sujit and I, we decided to rope ourselves up, and we went ahead with one of the Sherpas. So this is us reaching that rock where we had to now turn around and then climb the mountain on the screen. So this took us close to around 2.5 hours to reach up till here. And then, just over here, this slope, it took us close to around 45 minutes because it was so steep and so deceptively steep that, we had to literally go zigzag, count steps together and, make some big effort out of it and, get up to the cramp point. Now, this is something which we do in practice, right? So like I said, whenever we climb these relentless climbs, I always take into reference the practice which I've done back home. So I live in a 47-story tower and in Bombay, and I often climb stairs before any expedition and everything. Now in lockdown, there was nothing really to do. So I decided to climb the height of Mount Everest on the stairs. So that is around 8,891 meters, which I climbed, which is roughly around 2,900 floors. So I decided to climb it at a stretch. This was the second time I did in January this year. I had even done something similar in April last year when I climbed the same amount, but spread over 2.5 days because that time the lockdown was really intense and no hospitals were taking anybody, certainly not a foolish person like me who was attempting something like that. So I split it down into 2.5 days over 3 sessions every day and 2-hour sessions, and I'd done that. But when I finished it, I thought, okay, fine, this is possible to attempt at a single go. So I chose winter because, relatively in Bombay, it's cooler at that time. And luckily at that point, even the lockdown, there was no lockdown. So it was quite easy. So I attempted 2,963 floors. I enlisted the support of my friends who also came and climbed with me. And I did it over close to 22 hours. Okay. And then it got a mention on the India Book of Records as probably the maximum floors climbed by an individual. Of course, it's not something major. I'm sure if anybody puts their mind to it, they can always do that. But so far, nobody has. So I was quite happy about that. And it also got featured. The one which I'd done in April last year in 2020, that got featured on Expedition News. Because what happened is when I did that stair climbing, Harish Kapadia, he's a renowned mountaineer from Bombay, and he's a close friend. So he said, Ari, you have to make a video for IMF. So I made a video for IMF. I did a YouTube video. We had a presentation like this where I presented the entire thing on a webinar, and they recorded it and posted on their IMF video series. And then it was picked up by Expedition News, and my name was amongst people like Alex Honnold and stuff. So I was like, wow, that was a big achievement for me that, whatever I did, it got credit. So that pays. And I also use something called as a training mask. So this basically simulates high altitude, not exactly in the same way, but what it does is there are different walls which control the amount of air going in, and it helps to simulate different altitudes like 3,000 feet, 6,000, 9,000, 12,000, 15, 18,000. So up to that altitude, you can simulate. Basically, it reduces the amount of air. It doesn't create an actual thing of rare oxygen, rare air, but it just reduces the amount of air and it improves your lung capacities because you're breathing that much harder. So I use these two things. And obviously, all this climbing, it helps while we are actually on the slopes and we are climbing a relentless climb. And then you think, okay, fine, it's just say, so when I'm climbing, I take reference, okay, it's just 3 floors, which I would otherwise do in my building, right? So the 3 floors here would take 30 minutes, while in the building it would take probably less than a minute, right? But that's how it is. So you just draw strength from what experience you've done in your training, and you climb. So obviously, when we climb, the incentive was that we will be able to see Mount Nun and Mount Kun from here. But unfortunately, it was a terrible bad day because it was very, very cloudy and there were really dark clouds. And once we reached the top, we realized that we had to do a lot of street climbing. Okay, so it was literally like loose rocks where we had to break trail. Okay, so unlike say a trek where the path is completely open and you know where you have to go, here we didn't know where we have to go. We were climbing it first time, even the Sherpa was climbing it the first time, and we were all trying to find our way up through that maze of loose rocks. And it's very, very difficult when we are climbing with snow boots because for us, we are not used to snow boots. And, you can see these are rented snow boots. So every time you step, it goes down and, it becomes very challenging and very strenuous. And plus, we had walked through the entire night. And at this point, I barely had any even water left with me. Okay, so I was like completely drained out, and we nearly reached the top. But at that point, the weather turned really bad, and we had to go all the way back to our base camp, which would easily take around 4 hours from here. So then we decided to just stop short of the summit and around 100 meters or 100 feet short of the summit, and then we decided to come down. So this was the entire trail that we could see, from the top. It really felt like as if you're in an aircraft and you're looking down. So that way, this was me at the top of Somothan mountain. And you can see that it had already started snowing by now. So then we decided to make our way back. And in mountains, what I've learned is whatever is tough while going up is horrible while coming down. This is what I've learned as a rule. So whenever I think that, oh my God, even in a Sahyadri hike in Maharashtra, when we go for monsoon hikes, wherever if there is a tough climb, say, slippery climb or slippery rock, then you know that, when you're going to come down, it's going to be really bad. So this is one lesson I've learned from all my climbing. So obviously this was really bad because there was no trail, and every step that you would keep, it would just keep sliding down, and there would be a mini rockfall happening over there, and we had to be really careful, sometimes be on a butt and go down. But this is how it was. So we went through this whole maze of rocks, and we reached the plateau eventually. Then we took a break there because then it started snowing a lot. We changed our jackets, and luckily at that point, some of the Sherpas, they came back from the base camp and they got us some hot chai and stuff. And that's how we reached back to the base camp. So this was our entire GPS trail of what we had climbed. And then, of course, the next day we went down to Kanji and reached Kanji village, which was a big relief because now you're seeing some greenery after all that barren stuff. But nevertheless, this is a very beautiful oasis of a village, and a lot of tourists even reach up to there because it's accessible by road, and it's again a very lush green at that point of time. And we went to the villages, we went to the horseman's house where he treated us to chang, and we had a good time just getting back after the rigors of the climbing. And then we figured that there's also a big rink over here where actually international level ice hockey happens in the winters. So that was quite nice to learn. So that way, this is right in Kanji village. So it's a very popular tourist destination too because of the ice hockey which happens over here. And it has a lot of homestays over there where we stayed. And the next stop was Kargil. So this was the break that we decided to take between Somothang and Mount Noon. So we went to Kargil. We spent a couple of days there. That was August 15th, I remember, because we saw the flag hoisting and stuff at Kargil. And then we headed to Mount Noon. Now, this was the real stuff, okay, after all that. So the good thing about India is that the trails are very rustic. It's not organized trekking like the way you see it in Europe, where every trail is marked beautifully. It's given how many hours it's going to take and everything. They'll guide you as to which trails are red, which trails are green, which trails are easy for trekkers, which trails are only for technical climbing. So it's very organized over there, but here it's very rustic. What I don't like, unfortunately, but we have to agree by the rules, is that no sat phones are allowed. I feel that this can be one single reason why summit attempts can fail. Like, what can happen if you don't have the data. So I really wish, there was some rule. I understand from security point of view, they banned sat phones, but I don't know if something could be worked out on that aspect and, made available to climbing groups, because that really helps. So anyway, so this was the village of Panikhar, which is on the way from Kargil to a place called Tangol, which is the base camp of base village of Mount Noon, from where actually you can see Mount Kun. We cannot see Mount Noon, we can see Mount Kun from there, which is the twin mountain. Then this is the Tangol guest house where we were staying, which is the base village for all the expeditions which go to Mount Noon. Okay, and then we started climbing towards the base camp. So again, once you climb that initial bit, then you reach a plateau where you can actually see the entire glacier, which forms the glacier for the Suru River, which you see in Kargil. So you can say that parts of the Suru River originate from this very glacier, which you cross while reaching the base camp of Mount Noon. So we were reaching closer to the base camp. Again, a lot of scree and rubble to walk in. And eventually then we crossed the glacier, which forms this origin of Suru River. And once you cross the glacier, then you have to do a major scree climb to reach the base camp of Mount Noon. So this base camp is where your home is for the next 1 month. So this is something which is very different from trekking. So that's one reason why my wife doesn't like trekking. I mean, doesn't like mountaineering, because what happens in mountaineering is that you tend to spend too much time in the same place. Okay, like you're doing rotations, you're going up, coming down, coming back to the same place. So you're not seeing anything different. Plus you're spending so many days. Plus it's very strenuous and challenging, right? So whereas trekking, you see a different place every day. You're walking to a new place every day. And generally, if it's a trek which goes one way, starting at one place, ending at the other, like say a Rupin Pass, it's so beautiful because every day you're seeing some new place and, this. Whereas mountaineering doesn't give that same joy. I completely agree with her, but then both have its place. So this was the base camp where we reached. We came and we performed our puja and set up base camp, and we got all the stuff from Tangol with the help of porters who carried their 20-kilogram loads and got everything up to base camp. And then was the plan of the rotation. So let's say this was the Mount Noon base camp. There was also a high camp, which a lot of expeditions earlier had used, but we did not use because the glacier has receded and now there is no water source up there. So that's why we couldn't use high camp as the base camp. And that makes it challenging because reaching from Mount Noon to high camp, base camp to the high camp itself takes around 2 hours. So, and it's like a steep climb in scree. So that, and then comes the camp 1, which is separated from high camp by a vertical ice fall or a falling glacier, which I'll show in the pictures, and then camp 2, then camp 3, and then summit. So we had to do rotations. So we start from Mount Noon, we went to camp 1, we came back, then we went to camp 1, stayed a night there, went to camp 2, came back, and then spent 2 days at base camp, and then again go all the way up to the summit. So that was the plan. So this is the falling glacier or the hanging glacier, which is there, which is again a spectacular thing, because I don't know whether it's possible for you to see, but there are 2 or 3 people standing over here. So it's like enormous. It's enormous. And it's all nearly vertical. So when you're climbing, it really takes a toll on you. So this is the high camp where we were. On the other side, we are looking at now. So one side we see the hanging glacier, the other side we can see our base camp down here. So and the Suru River Glacier over here. So this was the route for the climbing. So we had to go through this glacier, which is filled with crevasses. So again, now Pradeep had asked that, have you done any mountaineering course? So I could never take 1 month off in my entire life. Sometimes I think that if suppose, now I'm 46 or 45. So at this age, if somebody let me do a mountaineering course, probably because I'm more established in my practice, I have my associates, probably I can think of, taking a month off and doing a mountaineering course. But that never happened for me. And so what we did is we did this 4-day course at Giri Premi in Pune. They are a very fantastic organization who promotes mountaineering. They have even led a lot of civilian expeditions to 8,000-meter mountains, and successful ones, and practically done all the 8,000-meter mountains which are accessible for Indians. So they have summited all of them. So we know some instructors there and who are friends with whom I've done Mera Peak. And then when this course came up, I said, I have to do this because, that's at least you learn something. So we went for this thing. It was near Pune. There's a place called Sihagarh, and that's where this course was conducted. And they showed us everything, like, how to use, what are the different types of ropes, then what are the types of, how do you store the ropes, then how do you set up a climbing line, how do you belay, how do you use an ascender, how do you use a descender, all these basic things which become so useful. So in fact, I was discussing with Pradeep that, even for people who have done their mountaineering courses, you learn so much in that 1 month, but many of them often don't get into active mountaineering or going for expeditions because of time. And eventually when they come for an expedition, they've done their courses 5-6 years back, it's all forgotten. It's all like hazy, and it's almost like relearning again. So what we do with our guided expeditions is that whenever we go, we always spend 2-3 days, spending time learning some icecraft and, practicing our skills on the rope, using the crampons on our feet and trying front pointing and all that, so that at least we learn something back, and it helps us when we're on the slopes. So this is the training that we did, and then we hit the slope. So you can see here, this is nearly a vertical wall on which we are climbing, and it was completely a new experience for me. So I couldn't front point that well because I was clearly too weak in my ankles, and probably my technique was really bad. So I went duck walking up, and I found that very comfortable for me. Though it may not be very efficient, at least it got me to the top. So that way. So this is me climbing up on the fixed line, which was set up by Sherpas. And then once you reach closer to the top of the hanging glacier, there are a zillion crevasses. So these crevasses are so massive, and they keep changing. So when we were going up, it was one way. While coming down, some things were changed. Like some crevasse had opened up, and the routes had to be changed. So our Sherpas were constantly busy, shifting the lines and shifting the pegs and fixing them at different places. And these were the massive crevasses. In fact, there you can see a rope over here, right? And the rope has a start over here. So while coming down, our leader Homi, Huzaifa, he actually got onto the wrong line and he clipped himself onto this and he was happily descending on the way down, and then suddenly the Sherpa shouted, just stop over there, and then he realized he's on the wrong line, otherwise he would have been hanging like a barbecue over there on that line. So that way, so these are experiences which we all cherish, like these small mistakes or sometimes big mistakes, and it's all fun when we come back safe from it. So that way. So then this is again a view from the top of the hanging glacier. Then there was a big snowfield. Okay, so we reached the top of the hanging glacier, and then you can see over here, this is a massive snowfield. Okay, so we reached this snowfield, and that was the first time we got view of Mount Noon. Okay, now this is at around 5,300 meters, and the mountain is at around 7,000. So it's actually 1.8 kilometers higher in the sky, and it just doesn't look like that, but it is. And we set up our first camp, and we left whatever we needed for the next round. We left some stuff over there, and we descended back to base camp. So again, like when we descended back, things had changed. So, and it looks very scary, for me, this was my first experience on such major crevasses and rope lines which are traversing these crevasses, where you're stepping very gingerly and trying to check if something is going to break or not. In fact, for Sujit, who is much heavier than me, when he actually stepped, one full ice bridge collapsed under his leg, and luckily he could swing out of it, else he would have fallen into it. So these are really exciting things. Sometimes it's really scary because it's like long back when we were trekking in the Sahyadris, whenever we would be on a slippery ice, slippery rock, we had to step our feet over there. We would tenderly put our feet just to check if our feet are going to slip or not. So it was exactly same over here for me this time when we went, that, you're trying to do the same things and trying to check if everything is safe. I wonder if it happens for everybody, but for me, certainly that was the case. So you can see we were walking along very narrow ice bridges on a fixed line, and we had taken all our precautions, and we were clipped well, and we were completely there. We were not we are completely energetic. We are not tired or anything like that, but we just had to keep full concentration, which can be taxing. And then we, of course, descended back to base camp after leaving our stuff. Then the next rotation, we came to camp 1, and then we had to go to camp 2. Now, till here, the weather seemed to be really fine. But here you can see, this is where our camp 2 was. And you can see there was a lot of cloud over there. So somehow, for some reason, at camp 2, it always used to be really cloudy. And this was on a second rotation up. And now, this is the moment I'm talking about, where the Sherpa is actually keeping the rope tight so that I can cross it safely. So that way. And these snow bridges which would collapse in hours. So this was us heading to camp 2, and then this was our trail. So though it all looks very deceptively close, but it's not. You can actually see these humans climbing over there, and you can understand the scale of the thing that we're climbing. And this was again a 70 or 80 degree snow wall which we had to climb, and we climbed pretty well, and we reached the top. Now here again there's a lot of mixed snow and ice, snow and rock climbing, and we managed all that well, whatever, we were strong enough, and we managed all that well, and we reached the camp 2. So this was the only last tricky bit where you're using crampons on hard rock, and that's the only tricky bit where you tend to get off balance, especially because you're hanging on to a rope which is not very tight, and you can sometimes get off balance. But nevertheless, we climbed through it. It started snowing, and that's when we reached the camp 2. So this is camp 2 of Mount Noon. I don't know how many of you have been there. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. But this is actually a place where you can shit bricks. So, so it's really a scary place which has a 700-meter drop just one or two rocks away. So this is the rock. This is the edge of the ridge, and there's a complete drop over here. If you stand over here and look down, it's a sure case of vertigo, even if you don't have it. So that is, and this is a very scary place. In fact, the people who are from Giri Premi who had climbed Mount Noon earlier, they said that at Camp 2 you have to be roped up even in your tent. Even in your tent you have to be roped up so that you don't fall off. So that is, and when we went over there, I actually realized what they're saying, because it's a really scary place, and even to do your big job of outside the tent, you don't want to venture too far, and just do it somewhere where you're within the visibility of the tent. So it's a really scary place on a big slope, and that's how it is. So this is the view from the rock which I was talking about, where you look down and there's nothing down there. And of course, then it started snowing badly. And unfortunately for us, this is what we had planned the next day. But that next day never really came, and we spent 3 days at Camp 2. And I was just jokingly making a video saying that we're now going to get resident status. And the condition was really bad. It was windy, very windy. The tent was fluttering badly, and if you weren't there in the tent, probably the tent would have flown off. And I could even hear myself because the wind was so loud. And this was throughout the night and the day. And then we didn't have any extra food for more days. So Sherpas, then they came and they said that, this is the condition. We cannot go up in these conditions. And it was complete whiteout. In fact, when we were coming down from Mount Noon, it was complete whiteout, and we couldn't see anything. And we were like, thank God we are down. So it was like that. So we decided to turn back, which was a big decision, because turning back on a mountain is never an easy decision. In fact, we were ready. We told the Sherpas that, if we want to risk it, we are willing to risk it, but that's your call. If you think we are not capable of risking it, then please tell us that. And they said, forget you're risking it. Even we don't want to risk it ourselves. So he said, it's not a good idea to go ahead. So then we had to turn back down. And because it was a complete whiteout that day, we even lost our way while we were heading to Camp 1. And unfortunately, or whatever it is, and it's just like Murphy's Law in the mountains, the day we were down at base camp, it was the sunniest day ever I'd seen in the entire expedition. It was so sunny and so clear. And we were like, man, this is the time we should have been on the summit. And unfortunately, it wasn't the case. And then we have to come back. But nevertheless, it's always there. When I came back, I called up Harish Kapadia. I said that, he said, it's good that you come back. The mountain will always be there. Just make sure you're there too to climb it. So that was how it went. So this was the lesson that we learned, besides the things which I spoke about in trekking versus mountaineering. So load ferrying is something which a lot of trekkers are not aware of, and they don't like it. I know a friend who really wanted to get into mountaineering, but the whole idea of load ferrying on Mount Noon itself, he had gone on a separate expedition, that completely put him off. That, you have to carry so much, you have to carry 12 kilos, you have to carry 13 kilos, all that weight. You have to carry, then leave it up. You have to plan so much. He didn't like it. So, that can be very unnerving for ordinary trekkers or, non-professional mountaineers. Then long duration at the same camp, which I spoke earlier, that, because we spend so much time, you're not seeing anything new. So it starts to, get on your head. You have to keep yourselves busy. We used to see movies. We used to read books, or just to keep our minds away. But that's the reality of big mountain climbing. And access to good weather data. I feel that if we had access to a sat phone, in fact, I'd even try to subscribe to a sat phone service based in US. I forgot the name of the guy, but he gives these hourly updates for all big mountains, even for Everest expeditions and other the major 8,000 meter expeditions. So I even thought of signing up for a service, but unfortunately, if you're not able to even carry a sat phone to the campsite, it's really unfortunate. And probably if we had knowledge that, of the weather conditions, then we could have altered easily by a day or two, and, we could have probably reached the summit because we are so healthy, so raring to go, so fit, and, all the energy we had, and we could have done it. But that's how it is. And one needs to be constantly active. Like I was telling Pradeep yesterday or today, that, throughout the year, I keep doing something or the other which will keep me active. That means tomorrow, if somebody tells me that I have to do a 10-hour triathlon or a 10-hour marathon or a 10-hour mountain climbing or a trek, I should be ready for it. So, you have to be constantly active and look at your fitness. And of course, you have to have good gear. So you have to spend money, and, rather than going for rented gear, which sometimes is not the best fit, and, it can make or break your expedition, I feel that it makes sense to invest. So anyways, this is my thanks to our mountain guides who helped us there. This was our team. And I thank you all for being such patient listeners. And I hope you enjoyed my perspective as a doctor of, getting into in the realms of mountaineering. So thank you so much.